eating Italian food with chopsticks. Yeah, Italy might finally disown me for this one, but it was worth it. Mi dispiace.
Welcome to Lazy Susan Fusion, the show that combines classic cuisines with iconic dishes to create an all-new fusion recipe. I'm your host, Trig Ferrano, and this week the all-new fusion recipe will be the Italian dumpling.
Okay, just hold on. I know what you're thinking. Italian dumplings, that's basically just ravioli, right? Well, I thought that too, but then I thought about it some more and I realized Italians don't just have ravioli, they have tortellini, agnolotti, mezzalune, cappelletti. They even have different names for the same shape but a different size. So by Italian rules, every new shape gets a new name. And even though the dumpling isn't a new shape globally speaking, it is a new shape for Italy. So today I'm gonna make Italian dumplings and I'm gonna share with you 6 tips along the way that you can use not only for this recipe, but also any stuffed pasta recipe, really. Starting with tip number 1, or should I say tip number 00.
Most recipes for fresh pasta dough are gonna call for 00 flour. But if you're anything like me, you find it hard to just buy these specialty ingredients without understanding why they're so important. So what is 00 flour, and is it actually that important? Well, the 00 refers to the grind size. 00 is actually the finest grind that you can have with your flour, and all-purpose is gonna be a little bit more on the coarse side. One of the benefits of the finer grind is you'll use less water to make your pasta dough silky, and that'll give you more bite in your pasta. But this shouldn't discourage you from making pasta if all you have is all-purpose flour. You can still do it. It's just gonna take a little bit more water and it's gonna be a bit harder to make the pasta al dente. Whatever flour you have, you should totally go for it. To your flour, you're gonna add some eggs, mostly yolks. For this recipe, I added 5 yolks and 3 whole eggs. Mix the eggs together with some salt and a little bit of olive oil, and then incorporate the flour into the mix gradually. And here is tip number 2, and possibly the most important tip for making fresh pasta dough. The biggest factor I've found in whether or not the pasta dough turns out well is the hydration level of the dough. Basically, the drier, the better. This is actually the reason and pseudo-science behind why you see people start their pasta dough on the counter a lot of the times with a flour volcano and they crack the egg into it. This comes from the Italian tradition of making pasta right on the counter, which more often than not was made of wood. These wooden counters were porous, and as you kneaded and worked through the pasta dough, the wood would absorb some of the water from the pasta dough and dry it out slowly. If you don't have a wooden surface to work on, then this is just kind of messy, so that's why I just make my pasta dough in a bowl or a stand mixer. There's nothing wrong with it. I actually find it's better in a stand mixer because I can knead the dough for longer without getting tired, but I'm just using my hands for this video to show you another way and to get a little workout in. And you are going to get a workout. The flip side of making a dry dough is it's gonna be a lot harder to knead a dry, low hydration dough than it is a wet one. So you have to find a level of hydration that works for you. Start off a little bit wet but not sticky, and then slowly incorporate more flour and sweep up any dry bits that fall off until you have a nice, smooth, cohesive dough. Once the dough is smooth or your arms just can't take it anymore, wrap it in some plastic wrap and just let it rest room temp for 30 minutes. This is a way to passively work the dough. The gluten is still going to develop as it sits there and you make your filling. So tip number 3, choosing the right filling for your pasta shape. The traditional rule for Italian stuffed pasta is that the richer and heavier fillings should be in smaller sized pasta shapes, and the lighter or vegetable fillings will go into larger shapes. I consider dumplings to be on the larger end of the spectrum, and so I'm just gonna do a cheese stuffed filling using one of my favorite Italian cheeses, Taleggio, mixed with some heavy cream. Taleggio is also incredible with some balsamic vinegar, and so that's gonna be a dumpling dipping sauce that we're gonna get into later. But first, to make the filling, just slice down some Taleggio cheese into cubes and mix in a little bit of heavy cream until you have kind of a chunky cottage cheese consistency. Bag it and keep it in the fridge until you're ready to stuff your pasta. Now, tip number 4. When rolling out your pasta dough, I find it super helpful to just pass it through the widest setting a few times, 3, maybe 4. This is a way to continue to work the pasta dough in case your dough was under-kneaded. Keep rolling the pasta thinner and thinner until you get to the thinnest setting, and then go through another 2 or 3 times. Every time you pass it through, the dough is going to shrink up because of the elasticity that you've built in through working that gluten. So passing through the thinnest setting 2 to 3 times is going to help prevent that spring back as much as possible. possible. Next, I just used a cookie mold to cut 2.5-inch circles, piped on a bit of filling, and then folded each one like a dumpling. Wet half of the circle, fold it over to pinch the dumpling closed in the center, and then make creases from the center out, 3 times on one side and 3 times on the other. Which brings us to tip number 5, resting your dumplings. Remember earlier when I said that wood was porous and would absorb any excess moisture from the dough? Well, when you fill your dumplings, you're introducing more moisture to the dough, and that could cause the dumplings to get stuck on a surface or rip open when you go to remove them. So if you want to save them for later or are just storing the dumplings while you finish making the rest, make sure you put them onto a wood cutting board or just a lightly floured surface so that excess moisture doesn't build up. To cook these bad boys, you just gotta drop them into a boiling water bath for 2 to 3 minutes, and once they float, they're done. Coincidentally, that's the same amount of time it takes to like this video and leave a nice comment below. Now, the finishing touch for these dumplings is going to be a simple butter sauce that you can make just by melting a few cubes of butter, mixing in your dumplings, and adding a spoonful of pasta water. Toss everything around until it's emulsified and the dumplings are fully coated, and then plate them with a little bit more butter, some freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and some balsamic vinegar as a dipping sauce. Now, the 6th and final tip is to use quality finishing ingredients. I find that there are really 2 ways to make delicious food. The first, if you're a master of spices, then you can use the complexity of herbs and spices to transform just a normal ingredient into something exceptional. But with a dish like this where simplicity shines through and you only have 5, maybe 7 ingredients, it's very important to get quality ingredients, and buying quality ingredients for the whole recipe is tough. So if you have to invest your money somewhere, invest in those finished ingredients that don't cook or process at all. What you taste is what you get. So get a high quality Parmigiano Reggiano and a high quality balsamic vinegar. It will make a difference. And it will make a big difference to me if you subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to make YouTube a full-time thing, and I can't do that without your help. So please subscribe and show your support. And then I can make more videos like the Italian dumpling, which is now the 4th best recipe on the show. I can't wait to see what the next fusion recipe will be. This is Lazy Susan Fusion.